Okay, now this is the part where it's like a backwards meal. Instead of getting to eat your ice cream if you ate the broccoli, now you get the broccoli at the end. We're in a continuing resolution right now, which shouldn't be a surprise to anybody, since in the last 150 years, I think we've started off with a continuing resolution every year. So we don't know our budget yet for FY12. We're going along at last year's levels with no new starts, at least for another month or so, and I don't know what will happen at the end of that. Maybe an omnibus bill that covers the entire federal funding package. Congress may actually pass individual budget bills, and for instance, in our case, both the Senate and the House have passed energy and water appropriations bills. They're not commensurate and would need a conference committee and so on. I don't know whether there's enough collegiality left to have such a thing, or whether there will be some kind of grand solution like there was last year. So we're proceeding cautiously, as we have had to in the beginnings of recent years. We still expect and plan for some growth of our missions, not all of it, of course, funded federally. In fact, some of the growth areas look like they'll have to be work for others primarily. And flat is the new sign of success in the world, so we're expecting flat funding in 12. 13 is more of a stretch, I fear, but I don't know. And so we have to be looking at contingency plans in the case of less than flat funding. And there's been instructions to all federal agencies over the past month or so to actually look at significant decreases in funding in the out years, so we have to be ready for that. As I'll show you in a minute, our operating budgets are pretty stable, and so we're hoping that we'll be okay in that area. But we'll also have, in a natural way, we'll have some slowdown of construction activity over the next several years. So we have to plan for all that. This is a big, busy table that shows you by program what we actually spent in FY11, or what our actual budgets were in FY11, our projections for 12 based on what we know now, and a little bit more wild projections going beyond that for 13. The main things you can see, I'll just call your attention to the operating budgets. We expect a very slight decrease in 12 relative to 11. So this does not mean things are going to run as normal, because things, you may have noticed, tend to cost more as time goes on. So this may still lead to slight reductions in operations, or depending on how the budgets actually break out, maybe even more than slight reductions. But right now, this is, I think, a pretty good story as best we can tell. You start to see declines in construction over the next couple of years, but most of that is because we're finishing NSLS2 over that period of time, or the bulk of it. We're finishing the interdisciplinary science building and the various stimulus program projects that we worked on. So that's going down as expected. What's not so nice in this picture is that some of the increases in spending, like on the next interdisciplinary science building and the next one after that, are now showing as pushed out pretty far on the DOE's schedule because of their expectations about flat or worse than flat funding. So the SLI program is not funded as aggressively as we originally planned, and to the point where it will actually become the limiting factor in how much we can grow our programs. If we can't get the new high-quality lab space on the schedule we wanted, then it'll take longer to get those new programs up to where we wanted them to be. So that's the construction story. You see some significant growth down here in work for others. This growth is actually mostly, pardon me, mostly having to do with constructing beam lines for NSLS2 with other people's money. So the NIH is putting a lot of money into beam lines over and above what the DOE is putting in, and so on. So there's some good news in that. Also, off the chart, starting in 14 and accelerating beyond that, is increase in operating funds because we expect NSLS2 to be operating, and its operations are significantly require significantly more funding than NSLS operations. It's just a bigger operation. It has better support for the beam lines. That means more scientists employed, and so there will be a budget for running NSLS2, which is of order $100 million per year more than what it costs to run NSLS, and comparable to what we're currently spending on running RIC. So that's good for beyond the end of this chart.